stronger than I look.
Well, I don't doubt that.
And I'd like to make another announcement to the cameraman. Make sure you don't put your equipment down until George says, okay? Everybody got that information? Your shutter better not get us kicked out of here.
I'm not the only camera person.
I know.
Although Canons are a lot quieter.
Microphones, but I don't see a lot of speakers. It's just I don't know how loud. You don't care very loud. Right, that was quite loud. Oh.
All right, come rolling. Baltimore County Court of Justice is now in session. The Honorable Durham Cole presiding. You may be seated.
17 GS 42983, Your Honor, is for count 1 murder, count 2 possession of firearms or commission of violent crime. That has been true billed. 17 GS 42984, Your Honor, count 1 murder, count 2 possession of firearms or commission of violent crime. Has been true billed. 17 GS 42985, Your Honor, is for murder. That one has been true billed, Your Honor. 17 GS 42986, Your Honor, is for murder. That one has been true billed, Your Honor. 17 GS 42987, Your Honor, is for murder. That one has been true billed, Your Honor. 17 GS 42988, Your Honor, is criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. That one has been true billed, Your Honor. I believe he's indicated he's waiving his right to arraign on that also, Your Honor.
That's correct.
17 GS 42989, Your Honor, is for kidnapping. That has been true billed also. The 17 GS 42990, Your Honor, count 1 is for murder, Your Honor. Count 2 is possession of firearms or commission of violent crime. That would be count 2. All has been true billed, Your Honor. Your Honor, there's been a contract signed on this case. He is pleading guilty to negotiated sentence. He will plead guilty to 7 consecutive life sentences, as well as 60 years consecutive on each charge, Your Honor. The contract has been marked as 401. It has been signed by all parties, by the defendant, his attorneys, as well as Sheriff Chuck Wright, myself, as well as the victim's representatives in this space. Our count 2, 402, Your Honor, is a waiver of parole that he has signed. We'd like to make both those part of the court record, Your Honor, at this time. Then also, Your Honor, when I get ready to do the facts, we can make part of the facts, Your Honor. We have 2 notebooks here, Your Honor. And they're state exhibits 1 and 2. They consist of 254 exhibits, Your Honor. We're going to move that into evidence if it's part of the facts of the case at the appropriate time also, Your Honor, in this case. Now approach the bench, Your Honor. And Your Honor, before we get started, we do have the victim's family representatives to my right, Your Honor. We also have Sheriff Chuck Wright and his personnel that work on this case here in the courtroom also, Your Honor. The Sheriff's Department, I think we do have people from Anderson Police Department also.
You are Todd Kohlhepp.
Yes.
Clay Allen of the Public Defender in Spartanburg, and Shane Goranson of the Commission on Indigent Defense are your lawyers.
Yes.
How long have they been representing you in this matter?
About 6 months.
And during that, sir? Well, I know. The beginning is 5 or 6 months. During that time, have you had sufficient opportunity to talk to them about your charges and about the disposition of your case? Mr. Allen and Mr. Goranson, I'll ask you, what is your, whether or not you have an opinion as to Mr. Kohlhepp's rational and factual understanding of the charges, as well as whether or not he has a rational and factual understanding of the proceedings relating to the disposition of those charges?
Your Honor, I have an opinion as to rational and factual understanding of the charges and the proceedings, and it's not been that he is fully aware of what he's doing and fully aware of the proceedings. And I have no question as to his accomplishments since he stand trial working with this plea.
And do you agree with that, Mr. Goranson?
I do.
Has Mr. Kohlhepp had sufficient ability to consult with each of you during the course of your representation? And has he been able to assist you in the preparation of his case and the development of any defense that might have to any of the charges that have been brought against him?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Has Mr. Kohlhepp undergone any type of psychological evaluation to determine his competency and or criminal responsibility as it relates to any of the crimes?
No. I do not request it.
All right. Do you have any information, indication, or belief that Mr. Kohlhepp may not be competent to stand trial or not criminally responsible for any of the crimes that are alleged against him?
No, Your Honor, I do not.
Very good.
Mr. Kohlhepp, I'm back with you now. Have you had plenty of time and opportunity to talk to your lawyers as well as about the cases that have been brought against you, as well as about your decision as to a disposition of those cases, whether it be by a jury trial or by a plea of guilty?
Yes, sir.
And have you discussed with them and told them everything you know about the allegations made against you?
Yes, sir.
And have your lawyers done everything that you they done anything that you did not want them to do? Are you completely satisfied with their representation of you during the course of this case?
Yes, sir.
And you're completely satisfied with what they have done on your behalf?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any additional time that you need to spend with them before we proceed?
Yes, sir.
And I do have before me 10 separate indictments. Those 10 separate indictments set forth 14 separate and distinct criminal offenses for which you may receive 14 separate and distinct punishments or penalties. Indictment 2017 982 charges you with murder and with possession of a firearm during the commission of that violent crime. Indictment 2017-983 also charges you with murder and possession of a firearm during the commission of that violent crime. Indictment 2017-984 also charges you with murder and possession of a firearm during the commission of that violent crime. Indictments 2017-985, 986, and 987 also charge you with the crime of murder. Indictment 2017-990 charges you with murder and with possession of a firearm during the commission of that violent crime. Indictments 2017-981 and 989 charge you with kidnapping. And the remaining indictment is 2017-988, and that indictment charges you with criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. Have your lawyers been over each of those indictments with you and explained to you the allegations that are contained in each? And do you understand what the state claims that you did by way of each of those indictments?
Yes, sir.
Did they also discuss with you potential penalties that could be imposed if you were convicted of each of these crimes?
Yes, sir.
The law provides that a person found guilty of murder must be punished by death or by a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment for 30 years up to life. No person sentenced for murder is eligible for parole, community supervision, or any early release program. Nor is such a person eligible to receive any type of work credits, education credits, good conduct credits, or any other credits that would reduce the actual sentence imposed. That is a life sentence. You understand?
Yes, sir.
The law also provides that a person found guilty of the possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime must be imprisoned for 5 years in addition to the punishment provided for the principal crime, except that this 5-year sentence does not apply in cases where a life sentence is imposed for the violent crime, including the crime of murder. You understand?
Yes, sir.
The law also provides that a person found guilty of a crime of kidnapping must be imprisoned for a period not to exceed 30 years unless also sentenced for murder in the same case. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
The law also provides that a person found guilty of criminal sexual conduct in the first degree may be imprisoned for not more than 30 years in the discretion of the court. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Do you further understand that the crimes of murder, kidnapping, and criminal sexual conduct in the first degree are each classified in the law as violent offenses, most serious offenses, and no parole offenses?
Yes, sir.
And you discussed that with your lawyer?
Yes, sir.
Understanding the nature of the charges made against you by the state, as stated in each of these separate indictments, and the potential sentences that may be imposed upon conviction for each charge, do you wish to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty to each of the charges contained in each of these separate indictments?
Guilty, sir.
Now, before I can accept any plea of guilty, it is required that I determine whether or not your decision to plead guilty is freely, voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently made. And therefore, in order for me to make that determination, I must ask you a number of questions. If you do not understand any question that I ask, you should not answer that question without asking me to explain it or to clarify it. And if you answer a question, I will assume that you did understand it and your answer to that question is complete, accurate, and truthful. You understand? If at any time during the course of this process you have a desire to stop to have a further discussion with your lawyers about the matter before we can proceed further, then you need to let me know of that fact, and I'll provide you with that additional opportunity to talk with your lawyer. You understand? How old are you? How far did you go in school? Have you ever been married? Do you have any children? What kind of employment have you had? Have you ever been treated for any type of substance abuse or addiction? Do you suffer from any such a condition today? Have you ever been treated for any type of mental illness or emotional disturbance? Do you suffer from any such a condition today? Have you consumed any type of medication, drug, or alcohol during the last 72 hours? Did your lawyers explain to you each of the constitutional rights that you have that you must give up if you wish to enter a plea of guilty? And you understand that when you enter a plea of guilty, you must give those constitutional rights up? Did your lawyers explain to you that you have an absolute right to remain silent? Of course, that simply means that when you're charged with a crime, you have an absolute right to remain silent. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to answer any questions. You don't have to make any statements. You don't have to testify in court during any proceeding. You cannot be required to take the witness stand and testify even during the trial of the case. You have an absolute right to remain silent and to require the state to come into court with sufficient evidence to establish your guilt to the satisfaction of the jury beyond a reasonable doubt. You don't have to assist them in their efforts to prove your guilt by you taking the witness stand and answering questions or making statements that might tend to prove you guilty of any crime that the state claims you have committed. Do you understand that right to remain silent?
Yes.
And do you wish to give that right up in order to enter your pleas of guilt?
Yes.
Did your lawyers also explain to you that you have a right to confront and to examine any witness that might offer evidence against you?
Yes.
You understand that you have a right to require the state to bring their witnesses into court, to have each of those witnesses take the witness stand and testify under oath in your presence so that you can see who they are, you can hear what they have to say, and your lawyers can examine those witnesses on that testimony in order to test the reliability of the testimony and the credibility of the witness. You understand that when you plead guilty, that process does not take place? Do you wish to give up your right to confront and to examine the witnesses in court? Did your lawyers also explain to you that you have a right to have a jury trial and to have a jury of 12 people determine whether or not you're guilty? You understand that if you have a jury trial, you and your lawyers help select those jurors that will decide the verdicts in your cases? You understand that 12 are chosen to make that decision? You understand that if you elect to have a jury trial, that the burden is upon the state to convince those 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty, and the burden is never upon you to prove anything? You understand that if you have a jury trial, you still have the right to remain silent and can't be called to the witness stand or ask any questions about the crimes that are alleged against you? You understand your right to have a jury trial in each of these cases? Do you wish to waive and give that right up in order to enter your pleas of guilt as you've indicated? Has anyone promised you anything in return for your pleading guilty which induced your decision to plead guilty to these charges? There have been plea negotiations, have there not? And did those plea negotiations result in a plea agreement entered into between you and your lawyers in the prosecution? And would you have pled guilty but for the fact that you all came to that agreement? All right. So You have, obviously, I believe this is your signature on the, negotiated contract or agreement, is that true? It's been marked as, Courts Exhibit number 1. Have you been over that, contract with your lawyers? And did you initial each page of that contract as it appears that you have? And did you also sign that contract, on the, last page, of the agreement? And did your lawyers go over each paragraph and each line and each word of that agreement? Did they explain it to you? Did they explain the significance of it? Did you look at it and read it yourself? Did you ask them any questions that you had about it? Do you fully understand the contents of the plea agreement? And do you fully understand that you are bound by the contents of that plea agreement? By the terms of that plea agreement, you have agreed to plead guilty to each of the charges as previously discussed by reference to the indictments that I discussed with you earlier. Is that true? You have also agreed to waive and to give up and not to assert any defense, if any, that you may have to any of the charges to which you're offered to plead guilty. Is that true? You have also agreed not to directly or collaterally attack or contest the validity of your convictions for the crimes to which you are pleading guilty in any court, whether it be a state or federal court. Is that true? You have also agreed to give up any right that you may have to appeal the entry of these guilty pleas, the resulting convictions, and any sentences imposed by this court pursuant to the plea agreement. Is that true? You have also agreed not to seek any type of judicial review of these convictions by way of an appeal, a writ, a habeas corpus petition, post-conviction relief petition, or otherwise in any state or federal court. Is that true? You have also agreed to waive and give up any right you may have to attack these convictions through any type of post-conviction relief proceeding on any ground, including but not limited to the ineffective assistance of trial counsel. Is that true? Now, you do have appointed counsel here, but you also had appointed counsel to assist you separately and apart from your appointed trial counsel as it relates to your waiving the right to any type of post-conviction relief proceeding. Is that true? And did you have plenty of time and opportunity to seek that advice? Yes, sir. And what was your lawyer's name? Was it Casey Secor?
Yes, sir.
And did you have plenty of time to discuss with him and for him to advise you about your waiving any type of collateral attack of these convictions?
Yes, sir.
And were you satisfied with his representation?
Yes, sir.
Do you fully understand what you're giving up?
Yes, sir.
You have also agreed to waive any right you may have, whether existing in the present or made available to you in the future, to any consideration of parole or early release or any other mechanism, method, or procedure which would serve to reduce any sentence imposed as a result of this proceeding today. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
You have also agreed to serve the remainder of your life in the South Carolina Department of Corrections. The term life meaning until your death in the Department of Corrections. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
The solicitor has agreed not to seek the death penalty for the crimes of murder in return for your pleading guilty to each of the crimes charged in each of these indictments, and the imposition of sentence as proposed, agreed to, and set forth in the plea agreement which has been made a part of this record and incorporated by reference herein. Is that true? You and the prosecution have agreed to the imposition of the following sentences by the court. As to each of the 7 counts of murder, you will receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and each of those sentences will be consecutive one to the other and consecutive to any other sentence imposed during this proceeding. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
You have also agreed to a sentence of 30 years to run consecutively to any other sentence imposed for the charge of criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. Is that true? You have also agreed to a sentence of 30 years to run consecutively to any other sentence imposed today on the charge of kidnapping, which is related to and associated with the criminal sexual conduct first degree indictment. Is that true? Are the terms and the conditions as contained in the written plea agreement the complete and total agreement that you and your lawyers in the prosecution have made with regard to the disposition of these cases? Did the solicitor promise or agree to do anything else for you that has not been stated or contained in the plea agreement? Are you understanding and intending and willing to be forever bound by the terms and the conditions of the written plea agreement? Has anyone made any threat against you that induced your decision to plead guilty today? Has anyone in any way forced, coerced, or pressured you into your decision to plead guilty today? Have your lawyers explained to you what the state would be required to prove in court before you could be found guilty of the crimes of murder, kidnapping, criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, and possession of a firearm or weapon during the commission of a violent crime? Did you discuss with your lawyers everything you know about the allegations that are made against you contained in each of these separate indictments? Did you and your lawyers discuss whether or not you had any defense to any of the charges to which you are offering to plead guilty? Do you know of any defense that you have, whether based in law or fact, as it relates to any of the charges to which you're pleading guilty? Do you understand that when you plead guilty to a charge that you waive and give up your right to assert any defense, if any, that you may have to that particular charge? Did your lawyers also discuss with you your right to challenge any search and or any seizure of evidence by the state that is intended to be used against you in order to prove your guilt? Do you understand that when you plead guilty, you waive and give up any right you have to challenge any search and or seizure of evidence, whether such search and or seizure was lawful or was unlawful? Do you wish to waive and give up that right to challenge any search and or seizure? Did your lawyers also discuss with you your right to challenge the voluntariness and the admissibility of any statement or statements that were made by you to law enforcement agents during the course of their investigation, whether those statements were made before or subsequent to your arrest for any charge? Do you understand that when you plead guilty, you waive and give up your right to challenge the voluntariness and the admissibility of any statement made by you that the state would intend to use, or which led to the discovery of other evidence that the state does intend to use against you in order to prove your guilt? Do you wish to waive and give up that right to challenge the voluntariness of any statement that you did make? Are you pleading guilty to each of the charges contained in each of these separate indictments freely, voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently? Are you pleading guilty to each of these charges contained in each of these separate indictments because you did commit each of the crimes just as they are described in each of the separate indictments? I want you to listen to the prosecutor's recitation of facts that he contends are accurate as it relates to each of the separate charges to which you're offered to plead guilty. Listen to what he tells me, because when he's through, I'll ask you whether or not you agree or disagree with his version and recitation of those facts. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. What I'm going to do, start from the newest case to the oldest case, Your Honor. There's actually three different events, three different cases. The first case I'm going to talk about is the indictment 17 GS 42 988, which is the CSC first, 17 GS 42 989, kidnapping involving Keller Brown, and 17 GS 42 990, Your Honor, which is the murder count 1, possession of weapon for crime count 2, where Charles David Carver was the victim on this, Your Honor. From there, this actually started in Anderson, Your Honor. 2016, Your Honor. Keller Brown, a mission report was filed September 5th, 2016 at the Anderson Police Department, Your Honor. The Anderson Police Department, Your Honor, obtained cell phone records concerning Keller Brown, showing that Todd Kohlhepp, the defendant, from his cell phone number and made contact with Keller Brown on August 31st, 2016, the day that Keller went missing, Your Honor. They also examined Facebook records from Keller Brown's Facebook, showing numerous messages between the defendant and Keller Brown on social media on August 31st, 2016. The messages indicated that Keller Brown and Charlie Carter were scheduled to spend hours working for the defendant on the defendant's property located in Walton Road near Woodruff, South Carolina, in Spartanburg County. All these crimes occurred in Spartanburg County, Your Honor. Cellular data records that they also obtained, Your Honor, associated with Carla and Charlie's phone, also showed the location of both cell phones that were owned by them were taken on the entire property of the defendant on Walton Road near Woodruff, South Carolina, Spartanburg County, here in South Carolina. On November 2nd, 2016, Your Honor, Sergeant Brandon Letterman obtained a search warrant for the defendant's property located on Walton Road near Woodruff, Your Honor. This is approximately a little bit over 95 acres, Your Honor. On November 3rd, 2016, the search warrant was executed on the defendant's property at Woodruff Road near Woodruff, South Carolina, Your Honor, by law enforcement. During the search of the property, Your Honor, Keller Brown was found locked in a conning box. 5 padlocks on the front of the Your Honor. While they were doing, they were looking, and basically you have the conning box there, you had like a two-car garage living space at the top of it. It's like in the middle of the property. You go through a chain link, you just go down. It's hidden from the road area. And we refer to Your Honor there. When they were examining, looking at the area, Your Honor, Keller Brown started knocking, yelling for help from inside the box, Your Honor. They obtained cutting tools, actually he had their generator he had on the property. From there, they cut the 5 locks off, Your Honor, down Keller Brown. In the front 3/4 of the box, Your Honor, was packed with supplies, food supplies, ammo, guns, all kinds of supplies, type items, Your Honor. In the back of the box, Your Honor, there was chain sticks at both corners of the container, Your Honor, with a curtain partition, Your Honor. Keller was chained by the neck and by her left ankle. Basically, she could get up. She did have 2 5-gallon buckets back there. She was laying on 2 dog pads with a blanket. The sheriff's department actually filmed this as they went in there. There's a film showing her where she was and how she was contained. From there, Your Honor, the chains would not let her go to the front where the other items was, so she could just go in the back of the plane. The sheriff's department immediately removed her from there, Your Honor, and took the shackles and chains from her. She immediately started telling about the shooting with Charlie Carter, Your Honor. Told him immediately the defendant shot him 3 times in the chest at the door of his garage on his property back on August 31st, 2016, Your Honor. He wrapped Charlie in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of his tractor. He had his tractor back in the garage area, Your Honor. She didn't see Charlie again, Your Honor. The defendant kept her locked up, kept her captive until she was released by the sheriff's department November 3rd, 2016, Your Honor. During her captivity, Your Honor, she was sexually assaulted by the defendant, Your Honor. Kella, when she was released, she was taken to the hospital at Spartanburg Regional, Your Honor. She started talking to Spartanburg County Sheriff's investigators, Your Honor, and told her that Charlie was buried on the property as well as others on the property, is what she was told by the defendant. The sheriff's department continued to search the property, Your Honor, found Charlie Carter's 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix PT is basically in the ravine on the backside of the property. He had poured brown paint on it, trying to cover the brush from there, Your Honor. Charlie was later found on the property, but the sheriff's department started searching for it, Your Honor. He had been shot 3 times in the chest area. Keller Brown on the way to the hospital also told the defendant talked about killing Johnny May and told about killing 4 people in motorcycle shots. At the hospital, sexual assault evidence kit was done on Keller Brown. Semen was then kept for vaginal swab, Your Honor. The semen matched the DNA of the defendant, Your Honor, in the amount of 1 in 8.5 sex trillion, Your Honor. That's been marked as Exhibit 15 in the item, Your Honor. They did find the body of Charlie Carter, Your Honor, there. At the same time that the sheriff's department had went on law enforcement on the property at Walton Road, Your Honor, they were actually officers talking to the defendant, his residence, at 213 Winston Way, Your Honor. They were notified he was taken in custody at that point. The charge of kidnapping initially, because they had that working from him and work on the other charges as they went. They found numerous guns, ammo, all kinds of things on his property. There was guns at both locations, Your Honor. They later on did the best they took the lock, Your Honor, and found a key that he had locks fit the keys that he had in his, residence, Your Honor, from there. He also commented about items that he bought off Amazon, about the padlocks that he used there, about how they, what they could do, and basically, and he talked about using a shovel, a small form of shovel, saying you use it to own bodies when they can't be on. The defendant later confessed to killing Shark Harbor, Lieutenant Carl Brown, and container of the, Farmer County Sheriff Officer's investigators, Your Honor, and he was given numerous statements about this, including Miranda warnings and everything concerning that, Your Honor. I'll stop there, Your Honor, and plus what I'm gonna do through all these exhibits in there, supplement these facts, this case as well as the next two cases.
All right, Mr. Kohlhepp, you heard what the solicitor just told me about the facts related to those individual cases.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree that what he stated is substantially correct and accurate?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, the next case we'll talk about is involving Megan Coxey and Johnny Coxey, Your Honor. It was indicted 17 GS 42 9811, which was a kidnapping of Megan Coxey, Your Honor. 17 GS 42 982, Your Honor, which is murder of Megan Coxey, which is count 1, and possession of weapons during violent crime, which is count 2. Then 17 GS 42 983, Your Honor, which is murder count 1 for Johnny Coxey. Possession of weapons during violent crime, which is count 2 on Johnny Coxey, Your Honor. Basically, Megan and Johnny were both reported missing on December 22nd, 2015, from the Sheriff's Department here in Spartanburg County, Your Honor. Through his statement, the defendant admitted to sheriff's investigators after they talked about this, Your Honor, that he had drove Megan and Johnny to his property on Walton Road, Your Honor, near Woodruff, in order to get them cleaning supplies. The defendant claimed that Johnny pulled a knife on him and kept robbing him after arriving on the property. The defendant shot Johnny Coxey twice in the chest, then tackled Megan on or about December 19, 2015. The defendant disposed of Johnny's body by burying him on the property adjacent to his gravel driveway. Basically, where he was, Your Honor, later on Megan, there was the container that Kell was in there, had a gravel road, and right across there where the both of them were buried from there. The defendant held Megan in the shipping container, which is the same container that Kell Brown was in on his property for approximately 6 days. During this time, Megan was changing the rear wall of the container against her will, Your Honor. On or about December 25th, 2015, the defendant took Megan out of the container. She walked in front of him. He shot her in the back of the head, Your Honor. She was buried by John across the container, across the road.
Mr. Kohlhepp, you've heard what the solicitor's told me about the facts related to those individual cases. Do you agree that those facts are substantially accurate and correct?
Yes, sir.
And Your Honor, the last case was the involved Scott Ponder, Brian Lucas, Beverly Guy, and Christopher Sherber, Your Honor. At the 17 GS 42 984, Your Honor, which was murder, count 1, possession of weapon or violent crime, count 2, involving Scott Ponder. 17 GS 42 985, Your Honor, which was murder involving Christopher Sherber. 17 GS 42 986, which is murder charge involving Brian Lucas. 17 GS 42 987 was murder charge involving Beverly Guy, Your Honor. This occurred on November 6, 2003, Your Honor. This is Supervised Motorsports business there, Your Honor, at 684 Parish Ridge Road, Bowling Spring, Chesney area, here in Spartanburg County, Your Honor. The defendant actually bought on April 16, 2003, 2003 Suzuki bike, Your Honor, at that time. He gave a statement to the Sheriff's Department investigator for the here in Spartanburg County, Your Honor. And he gave a statement on November 5th, 2016, that he bought the motorcycle from Super Motor Bikes. His grandfather gave him the down payment. The defendant was living in a Hunt Club apartment, Your Honor. He tried to ride it, but was inexperienced to ride, Your Honor. He tried to go back to trade it with him to just get out of it, Your Honor. They had brought his apartment, Your Honor, there. He actually lived in Hunt Club Road at that time, Your Honor, apartments at actually 1040 Hunt Club Lane, Your Honor. They brought it out to him, Your Honor. He reported it stolen to the Spartanburg Police Department here in Spartanburg on April 29, 2003. He said so out of a paper tag, Your Honor. He had actually got a the DMC had issued a tag to him on April 23rd, 2003, but still had a paper tag on it, Your Honor. After the police report, Your Honor, he contacted the insurance company that came on Cal's life. He still lost $1,000. The defendant, after that, started going to Greenville Tech. He went back to Superbike Motorsports again to look at bikes. He was still interested in them. During one of the times, he said that the owner manager made fun of him was in it. And his stepfather was with him during the visit. Investigators from the solicitor's office actually went out and talked to the defendant's mother as well as his stepdad. His stepdad confirmed that he was there when they made fun of him, and told our investigators about that. After that, Your Honor, Lieutenant Walter Loretta, 9mm, Your Honor, he had 3 10-round magazines, Your Honor. On November 6, 2003, just like he drove through Bowling Springs with the supervised motor shop, Your Honor. He actually went in there and he installed it. He was looking at different motorbikes, Your Honor. He wanted to make sure no customer was there. He was waiting for one of the managers or the owners to get back, Your Honor. Eventually, all 4 of them got there. All 4 of them worked there with one of no customers, Your Honor. He was sitting on a black Suzuki Katrina 600 bike, Your Honor. He told the defendant he would take it, or basically the defendant told him at the shop they would take it, Your Honor. Christopher Sherwood was a mechanic, Your Honor. He took the bike back to the back of the shop, Your Honor. In this shop, I went to it the day after the shooting, after this occurred. Very clean shop, very organized, really nothing out of place or anything. And the work area was in the back where it was being prepped. He went back to the, while his bike was being prepped, Your Honor, he went back to the back where Chris Sherwood was, Your Honor. Pulled out a Beretta, Your Honor, shot him twice on down the motion, Your Honor. He went forward, Your Honor. There's like plastic doors, light plastic doors you go through. He said he used his knuckles to avoid leaving fingerprints. He went through and basically the other 3 folks in there, Beverly Guy, which he refers to as mom in his statement, as well as Brian Lucas and Scott Palmer started coming back to the to see what was going on with the gunshot. He ran into the mother first, shot Beverly Guy, shot that in the chest. The other 2 gentlemen tried to run out the front door. He shot them as they were going out the front door, Your Honor. Scott Palmer actually fell in the doorway. Brian Lucas actually fell outside the doorway. Basically, they both been shot. Scott Palmer had been shot several times. He actually shot Scott Palmer again as he stepped over top of him. Whenever Brian Lucas, he went in and shot in the back area, broke his hip, shot, and did headshot to him, and then did headshot to everybody as he left. He later told his mom that he had done this to Mullins. When our investigators talked with him, talked with his mother said that that night he saw him in the face, said he was very nervous, and he was very upset that he was with him. And he later confessed to his mother that he had done this again. One other thing he mentioned too was he had mentioned the grains, which is very unusual, and the kind of casings that were done. There's 2 different bullet casings. He used bullet casings. He used 2 different grains that was used in the bullets. Very specific about that drum card from their in the state he is the sheriff's department in this case. And Your Honor, like I said before, I'd like to make sure all these exhibits were generally made part of the facts and part of the evidence in this case, so it's not some of the involvement basis.
All right, Mr. Kohlhepp, you heard what the solicitor just told me about the facts that relate to the remaining cases. Do you believe that what he has stated is substantially accurate and correct?
Yes.
Do you still wish for me to accept your plea of guilt?
Yes.
I'll accept your plea of guilty and hear from you and your lawyer and somebody else that you'd like to speak on this matter.
Your Honor, this time, we simply ask you to go along with the negotiated settlement.
Period. Mr. Kohlhepp, anything you want to add?
Your Honor, one thing I want to add before the victim speaks, Your Honor, in this case, part of the agreement too, he has agreed if he tries to escape, he tries to violate any terms of the agreement or whatever, he could be brought back for resentence and conviction stand, and he'd be facing resentence, including possible death penalty if he violates any of the provisions of the contract. Further later.
That's all.
If he did escape, I'll rephrase that, Your Honor, if he did escape from the DOC custody, Your Honor, that he could face, be brought back for resentence, including the death penalty.
Mr. Kohlhepp, you've heard what the solicitor told me. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
My question with you, I asked You are Melissa Brackman.
My name is Melissa Brackman, formerly Melissa Ponder. I am the surviving widow of Scott Dean Ponder, owner of the Provide Motorsports Suzuki. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of my late husband, Scott Dean Ponder, and my late mother-in-law, Beverly Dye. I have lived the last 13 years in complete darkness pertaining to any knowledge of who murdered my loved ones. My late husband and I struggled to conceive a child, which in turn required doctor's intervention. In October of 2003, we learned that I was pregnant with our one and only child, Scotty. Scott had the opportunity to attend one OB appointment and was able to hear the heartbeat of our son just 2 days before he was brutally murdered. It is still a miracle to me, even today, that I was able to hold on to this pregnancy. Beverly was over the moon to be a grandmother, something she never had the opportunity to take part in. My late husband missed the birth of our son, has missed every milestone this incredible boy has achieved, and has never been able to take part in parenting his one and only namesake. Not only did my late husband miss these important events, but I have missed motorcycle riding on the back of his bike, having him there to rub my pregnant belly, feel the baby kick, take this kid bike riding, motorcycle riding, cheering him on for making the honor roll, scoring baskets during his basketball game, listening to various band concerts and joking with him the way a father jokes with his son. And further, due to the violent murders of my loved ones, I was put through a living hell by people who I trusted to handle this investigation with integrity and honor. I was accused of things I cannot even fathom that were attached to my name for over a year and continuously plagued my reputation until the defendant confessed to this crime. And although I forgive the individuals who made this serious mistake in this investigation, it does not change the fact that Scotty's own great-grandmother, Ruth Ponder, died not knowing that our son, Scott Dean Ponder Jr., was in fact her only great-grandchild and carrying on the family name. I have lost relationships during this difficult process and have suffered all of the normal what-ifs that are associated with planning a future with my late husband. Our personal lives have been displayed for everyone to pick apart and judge according to what they believe to be true. The only thing I will ever be guilty of is I fell in love with a southern boy who swept me off my feet and exposed me to another life consisting of motorcycles, beach trips, family-friendly business, building a home together, and ultimately planning our family. Sadly, I will always wonder. What I do know, in spite of this extreme tragedy, I'm fortunate to be here today. I have carried on in the very way that Scott would have expected me to carry on. I have a master's degree in Justice and Security Administration. I work for Arizona Department of Child Safety as a caseworker on behalf of children. I'm a great mother who has made sure that both of my sons have every advantage, something Scott would have ensured. I lost so much. On November 6, 2003, when he didn't lose everything, standing next to me is a piece of Scott and a piece of Beverly in the very flesh. His dad and his grandmother are beaming at the things he is accomplishing in spite of this crazy situation. This kid is every piece of his father. He is caring, he is talented, he is social, and even looks like him. It's hard for me to feel anything towards the defendant, except an extreme sadness for the damage that he caused that can't be undone. This cannot be fixed, it can only be addressed with words and a sentence. There truly isn't justice when an individual is murdered due to the finality of such an act. I'm grateful that Kayla Brown was found alive, for without that, I would still be in the dark. At least now we can semi-close this chapter of our lives and truly start healing. There is no closure when you lose a loved one or loved ones in my case, but I do feel peace in knowing that we have an answer, and we consider we the individual responsible for the tremendous amount of damage to so many people. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Scott B. Conner Jr. I'm the son of Scott Conner and grandson of Beverly Guy. I lived almost 13 years without my father and grandmother. There's so many things my father and grandmother have missed and will continue to miss for the rest of my life. I just wrapped up my 7th grade year of school, finished another basketball season, and I was the second chair trumpet. I'm always going to wonder what it would have been like if my dad was here. For instance, he missed me learning to ride my bike without training wheels, he's missed all my band concerts, and he missed all of my accomplishments in Boy Scouts. I've been taught so many wonderful things about my grandma and my dad. I will always miss them. I'm grateful we finally have answers. And I hope the way I live my life will always make my dad and grandma proud. Mr. Kohlhepp has done a lot of damage. He took my dad and my grandma away from me. I feel that this sentence is appropriate for what he has done.
Now, Robert, call.
I would like to speak to the court on behalf of our daughter, Megan Harper. First of all, my deepest sympathy for all the families who have lost a loved one in these unfortunate circumstances. My wife, my daughter, and I've had a difficult time dealing with the loss of them. My wife has had her heart broken because her daughter is never coming home. My other daughter will never be able to share a bond with her sister. I have 2 grandchildren who will go through the rest of their lives without their mother. There are so many people that love Megan that have been severely affected by her death. My sincerest condolences for anyone here today dealing with the same emotional trauma as people. Unfortunately, this is a deep psychological scar that we will have to bear forever. The callous actions of Mr. Kohlhepp may have changed us, but they will never have controlled us. We will never forgive him for his transgressional behavior, but we can gain the strength and courage that will help us cope with losing Megan. Today is not so much his day in court as it is Megan's day of justice and retribution. I hope Mr. Kohlhepp will spend every day for the rest of his life thinking about the pain and suffering he has caused so many people. One day he will face final judgment, and then may God have mercy on his soul. Thank you.
Mary McCall.
This is on behalf of my grandson, Andrew Richards. This is his picture. It was right at Christmas time, and he was 7 at the time. Andrew loved his mother very much, and he expected a call or a text or a visit at any time. He wanted one, or when he wanted one. There was no time he couldn't talk to her or see her. Christmas Eve came. Where's my mom? I called and she didn't answer me. Maybe her phone is dead. Or we'll call her as soon as she gets to charge it. I also wanted to know when she was going give him Andrew. He also wanted to know when she was giving him for Christmas. No call. Where's my mom? Where do you think she is? Christmas came and no call or text or anything. The first year he would have no mother. Every day he would ask, did my mama call? And as sad as it was, I had no answer. Finally by February, Andrew wanted to know where his mama was. He knew something was wrong, and he told. He knew that she loved him so much. I will help look for her, he said. So every time we went anywhere, he would look for his mom. He would even turn around if someone looked like her. He played his first year of football, and I always said, I wish my mom could see me. She would be so proud of me. He knew why Andrew's mom couldn't see him play. May came around and he played a baseball game. She couldn't see him play. We planned a baseball party for his 8th birthday. We have a large family, and I thought he was just excited to get everyone together for a day of baseball, but sadly, that wasn't why he was so excited. My husband and I told him we had a surprise for him, and for fun, he had to wait until the party. He kept saying, hurry, I have to get there before Grandma and Grandpa get there. I know what the surprise is. And I asked him what he thought it was. He said, I know it's my mama, and she's going to jump out the truck. And I told him, no, honey, it isn't that way, but he didn't believe me. When we met up, of course, she wasn't in the bed, and I saw his little eyes just go dull. He never let on and hugged and kissed him as we walked. And I said, I'm sorry, honey. I don't know where your mom is. Through all these months, Andrew stayed brave during the day, but at night he would lay down and you could see his little shoulders shake. I knew he was crying. I would hold him and he would just say over and over he missed his mom. We heard rumors that he may be in Georgetown or Charleston. So we went on vacation and we went looking for him. Of course she wasn't found and his little heart was broken again. Then the day came when we found out where Andrew's mom was. It was one of the worst days of our lives to tell him his mother was dead. I don't know if he was in shock or what, but he didn't cry. He was just so quiet. The day after, he wanted to know if we would have a funeral for his mom the next day, and we called our pastor to come over and talk to us. Andrew was adamant about wanting one, so we said okay and planned a memorial for her. We gathered up pictures of her and him and called everyone we could, not thinking there was another reason. I never gave him details on his mother's death other than being shot and who did it. The day of the memorial, he was excited again, and we go and I see the same light go out in his eyes. Where's my mom? If you have a funeral, you get to see them one last time. And I want to see my mom. I've not even seen her face for a long time. I want to see my mama. But you took even the last time Andrew could see his mother. There are only a few stories of the pain and suffering that you caused a small 7-year-old boy, for not only the time after they found her body, but you took a year of his life not knowing. I wish I could say I could forgive you, but I can't right now. But you know what? Andrew will see his mom again in heaven, and you can't take that away from him. He hates you with his little heart, and he knows you shouldn't hate, but I sure can't correct him because I do too.
Cindy Coxey.
My name is Cindy Coxey, and I'm the mother of Johnny Coxey. And I want to take the next few minutes and talk about Johnny and share a little bit about who he was. I have so many memories, and they have now become sacred. The memories of Johnny as a child and how he wanted to be the next Babe Ruth. I can see him in his little pee-wee baseball outfit, standing at the door looking at the rain, trying not to cry because the game was canceled. He was so little. And then there was doing tricks with yo-yos, jumping ramps with skateboards, turning flips on the bicycle, and winning races on the dirt bike. Everything is sacred now and holds value. The motorbike trophies that were dirty, dusty, and in the garage are clean, polished, and displayed in the house. Now they are heirlooms to be passed down to his children. Johnny was such a loving person. He would visit, and when he left, I would often find a note saying, "I love you, Mom," scribbled on whatever happened to be around him at the time, whether it be a cereal box, a piece of paper, a piece of wood, or a book. I remember a time when we were in the kitchen, and he kept poking me with his finger, poking me in the ribs, poking me in the neck, just poke, poke, poke. I got so aggravated, and I drew an imaginary circle, and I told him, I said, "This is my space, and this is your space. Stay out of my space." And today I would give anything to have Johnny aggravate me and again to invade my space. He was my only son, a loving brother, a devoted husband, and a good father. I am mindful of the time that prevents me from sharing details of his many talents, attributes, and one-of-a-kind characteristics. I miss my son so much. One day he was here, and the next day he was gone. He just vanished, disappeared, and a multitude of unanswered questions was like an unmovable cloud just hanging over me. As months went by, the unthinkable became thoughts that I could no longer avoid. Visualizing him laying in a ditch somewhere like he was an animal, and nobody caring, and nobody knowing, it was more than I could bear. My prayers changed. I needed to know what happened. At this point, I just needed the truth. So the truth came out. The magnitude of the violation shook the entire world. God exposed incomprehensible evil. 48 Hours did a show and called it The Buried Truth. All were involved were shocked after truth was uncovered. God answered my prayers, even if he had to dig him up after being buried for 11 months. My son was returned to me. I gave him an honorable memorial. We paid respect to his life and properly acknowledged his departure. In closing, I'd like to add one more concept. We as American citizens are responsible to resist, fight, and be intolerant of evil at all costs. Despite the evil plans in a man's heart, gross professional negligence, error of human judgment and perception, and the limitations of the law, ultimately good will triumph over evil. I thank God for a nation who does not allow evil to walk the streets. God has put his finger on this. God has put a period on it.
Robin Olson.
Smith and myself, and in representation of my late husband and their late father, Brian Whitson. On November 6, 2003, it was a typical Thursday in our home, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. The alarm clock going off at 6:30 a.m. Brian and I getting two young boys ready for the day as we finished packing for a mountain getaway over the coming weekend. 7:15, Zach, who at the time was only 17 months old, and headed out the door and made our daily drive to daycare. Aaron, who at the time was 3 years and 7 months old, and his father, Brian Lucas, headed out to the barber shop for a haircut. Brian had a full day of work ahead of him and was anxious to finish up work in anticipation of a couple days away with our family. That afternoon, while I was at work, I overheard others in the office talking about a shooting that had occurred in Spartanburg County. We were also hearing that 4 people had lost their life. At that time, my thoughts were of which bank or gas station had been robbed. It never occurred to me to question whether or not my husband and the father of our 2 boys was still alive. As I was finishing up work for the week, I received a call from a friend's husband that the shooting happened at Superweight Motorsports, or the shop as we called it. My first action was grabbing the phone and dialing with the shop and Brian's cell phone numbers, unfortunately without any answer. I began my journey to the shop to see if the information I received was true. Was it possible that my friend's husband was mistaken, had this been a cruel prank, and know the truth soon enough? Usually, my travel to the shop was only 10 minutes, but that afternoon it seemed to take an eternity to make my way there. As I drove, I continued to call both the shop and Brian's cell. I took a moment and called my mom, asking her to turn on the television and to tell me if there were any updates on the shooting. When she spoke, I knew that it was bad. Upon arriving at Bearsbridge Road, I encountered a roadblock. I had to continue down this road, the road that would lead me to the shop, to my husband, to the father of our 2 boys, and ultimately to my anchor. But the road to all through traffic was stopped. I parked and ran from my car to the police officer on duty. He informed me that I could not pass through and that I would have to stay back. I explained my situation and pleaded with him to please let me continue on to the shop. He wouldn't let me pass. As I was heading back to the car, another victim's family member arrived and spoke with the officer, who in return called the detectives at the shop. The detective made his way to the roadblock and took us to Grandma Ponder's home, which was located right across from the shop. When I stepped out of the car, I was greeted by Bill Coffey, Spartanburg County Sheriff at the time, who informed me that there had been a shooting and that Brian did not survive. At that moment, the life that I had known for the past 7 years, half of which being married to my best friend, had changed and the earth below me began to crumble. After a little bit of time answering questions and talking about anyone who would have done such a horrible thing, my dad picked me up and drove me to my parents' home. On the ride to my parents' home, where my mom was watching Aaron and Zach, I could only think about the memory, ups and downs that Brian, the boys, and I had been through in such a short time. And the thought of how I was going to explain to our 2 young boys that their dad was coming home. As I sat in the back seat crying, overwhelmed with so many emotions, I couldn't even begin to imagine my life without Brian, or raising 2 boys without their dad. But as time has passed, I can still not understand that there was such a person or persons who had no heart or care for human life, for my husband's life. For 13 years, that unknown information of who or what lingered. Brian was taken away from us and missed a lot of our boys' first days of school, lost their first meet, first baseball game, first award day, first soccer game, the first gold sport, their baptism, their first girlfriend, learning to drive, and their first job. He has missed out on helping with life decisions like which college should they attend or which car to purchase. There's so many things to come that he will not be a part of. Graduations from high school, from college, first day of their careers, their engagement, their marriages, where he would stand beside them as their best man, or even holding his first grandchild. God is the reason. God's lack of compassion for human life, me. Brian has missed every day since November 6, 2003, and the reason he will continue to miss every day in the future. I stand here to let him know that Aaron's
Kohlhepp and I forgave him a long time ago. He took Brian from us, but he doesn't win. We want him to know that we don't blame him or hate him. We aren't even angry at him, but we do hold him responsible and accountable for his actions that day and for any of his actions every day since. Thank you.
Honor, carry the aye.
My name's Terry Guy. I was married to Beverly. Beverly was my wife. Scott was my stepson over 20 years. Your Honor, I come here today to let you know that it's been a long 13 and a half years. On November the 6th, 2003, I got a phone call that something wrong had went on at the shop for my mom, and she had never called me a word. And after going up there, I actually rode in the car with Robin, what she was talking about a while ago, the detective took us to Miss Congress. And Mr. Coffey came in and said that they were all dead. And I thought Scott had shot someone, and I said, who's dead? He said, all four of them. I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Coffey, I guess all four of them. That's when he said all four of them was there every day. Miss Ponder came in, was crying. My wife had taken her that day to have chemo, because she had cancer real bad. She was crying too and saying that she'd only kept Beverly 5 more minutes. She wouldn't have been out there. She was taking her all day. When he told us that they was all dead, after I got all that in, I ran outside into the field. And I got down on my knees. And I started to pray to God. And I wanted to know why and who. I asked 1 hour after it happened, God answered prayers. But everybody has to understand it's on His time, not ours. And He answered that prayer one day, 15 years later. And I do not have any hatred toward Todd. Everybody has to pay for their sins. I forgave him a long time myself. I hope that he can actually find his way to God one day. But I do want him to know that through this, God carries on. He's blessed me with a beautiful wife and a 9-year-old son. Without them, I couldn't have made it through the last 13 years. I know I would not be here today, because I would have just broken away. The other thing that I'd like to say is, God was so good that He didn't let that impact our system, but He let us know that it didn't kill us. He didn't win from doing all of that. The life still went on. And I would like to say to God too, I hope one day you can find life. And you can have life. Thank you, Lord.
was a hard worker. He was also a struggling adult. His marriage of 3 years was ending. David had a big heart filled with kindness. He enjoyed giving others a reason to smile. He was the type of person that would try his hardest to help someone even when he really didn't have the necessary skills to succeed. In the course of helping a friend, David found a moment of happiness. But this new happiness was cut short along with his life. David was taken from us by an act of intentional violence. For 2 months, we were thinking that he was missing and praying that he was alive. For 2 months, we drove the roads, we searched, we put up flyers, went on Facebook, we were asking for help and information from anybody who might have seen it. Then an answer to a prayer happened. On November 3rd, David's friend was found alive. The next day, a body was found, but was not positively identified until the 5th of November. From the 3rd to the 5th, we were standing outside the property fence, praying for another miracle. What we received was a bittersweet answer to our prayers. My boy was never forgiven. Through tears, we thank God for allowing us to find him. We held a memorial service on November the 19th. That was his birthday. He would have been 33. David's life meant nothing to the person that took him from us. But for myself, his family and friends, his life is very important. David is my son and one of my closest friends. No part of this feels real to us. We did not see his body or his car. We've not been allowed to see where his body was dumped after he was killed. What we have had are people telling us that he's gone and a bag with half of his cremate ashes. This year on Earth Day, we planted a weeping willow tree in our yard. My husband Jay and I mixed David's ashes with the soil by hand. Then, surrounded by family, we each placed a handful of the mixture around the tree and said a prayer for David was finally back home. It was the kindest way I knew to honor David's life and his wishes. My earlier drafts of this statement was filled with much anger and hurt, but it wasn't the message I wanted today. The Lord teaches us through the Bible of the healing power of forgiveness, to let go of anger and resentment that poison us. David is with the angels now, and beyond was full of hurt. May the mind of Christ, my Savior, live in me from day to day, by his love and power controlling all I do and say. May the word of God dwell richly in my heart from hour to hour, so that all may see I triumph only through his power. May the peace of God, my Father, rule my life in everything, that I may be calm to comfort sick and sorrow. May the love of Jesus fill me as the waters fill the sea. In all things, God's will be done.
All right, Charles, Carver. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Charles Carver. I'm Charles David Carver. How can I explain the loss of my son David? This had on my life to someone who did not know him. I would ask you therefore to bear with me for a moment. To allow me to introduce you. David was an avid bowler. bowling in leagues, from youth to adult. David liked football, baseball, and outdoors. He always had a smile and a very sense of humor. His day wasn't complete unless he made you smile. David, also known as Charlie, was a beautiful person inside and out. He spent countless hours with his grandmother and great-grandmother. David said, my grandfather was me after he passed several years ago because he retired from jail. And that's when I was with my Charlie. David was quiet at times, but was always listening. He was caring and a thoughtful man who would do anything asked of him. He loved life. He was fun to hang out with. David was kind to his younger brother and sister and even played with them considering their age difference. Like most young men, David liked good food, cold beer, and especially the company of family and friends. David was a giver. If you needed it, he would give it to you, even if it was his last few dollars. How do I feel knowing I will never see my son smile again? How do I feel I will never run into him again as he is leaving his apartment, knowing that he only lived a mile from me? I still look over wondering if he's home, and then I realize he will never be home. I will never see a smiling face. I will never be able to talk to my son again in person. My heart is broken, and nothing in this life will ever mend it. I can't begin to tell you the sorrow of telling my younger son and daughters that their brother David has gone to be with Jesus. David was an inspiring writer. All that talent, all that hard work, all wiped out in an instant by a monster. We were blessed to have seen David the weekend before he was murdered. I wish I had talked and hugged him longer. If I only knew. And I was blessed to have a son like David. And while I'm devastated that he was taken after only 32 years, my brother suffered pain. That never could have had the love we shared. I don't know if the words have conveyed to you the sense of my loss. Maybe there are no such words, perhaps. I should have just saved your time and said, I love David from his first breath, and I will love, mourn, and miss him until my last.
Our Edward Schubert is here, pastor of St. Christopher, but she did not want to speak. That's why Mr. Schubert recognized that she was here for the Ray Lucas plea.
Thank you, Judge, for allowing us this opportunity. It's been a long 13 years. I am Brian Lucas's mother. I'm proud to be his mother. My name is Lorraine Lucas. Brian is my first child, my only son. I can't even begin to tell you the horror that we went through in the last 13 years. When the sheriff's department told us it was business related, we argued with him and said, can't be business related. When November the 5th of the last year came, it became a reality. When we heard the story of Mr. Kohlhepp, we finally got it, because a normal customer would not go into a shop and shoot and kill for people, execution style. My son was a happy-go-lucky young man, child. He loved laughing, he loved joking, he loved life. He grew into a man, wonderful man, who loved motorcycles. He tore motorcycles apart, put them together, and that was his life. He got married. Thank God. He had two sons that were 3 and 17 months at the time that they died, that he died. They'll have no memories of him whatsoever. And sadly, Your Honor, it's very important to say that not only did we lose our son, we lost our 2 grandchildren. Because it's been 13 years and we haven't been allowed to see our grandchildren. We've been trying to meet these children. We met them. They don't understand. Where have we been? We've done everything within our power to tell them that we love them. So not only they've grown up without their father, they've grown up without their grandparents, their aunt, cousins. Been very blessed, because our family dynamics, our daughter ended up marrying Terry Guy's wife, Beverly, and fell in love with our daughter, and had will soon be a 10-year-old grandchild, a grandson, will be 10 in June, and he's the biggest blessing in our life. If we didn't have him, I'm not sure how we would have made it. That and our strength. But that child has grown up understanding. He now has, our family dynamics now takes in all of the Ponders, the Lucases, the Guys. But we've survived. We've survived because Brian Lucas, because November the 5th is probably one of the most horrible days of my life. In 2003, when I went home, after we were living out of state, when I went home to our home in Kentucky, I couldn't wait to get to the pictures of Brian Lucas that I had went one time to see him race. And when I pulled those pictures out and realized they were dated November the 6th, 1999, 4 years exactly to the date that prior to my son's death. Then, 13 years goes by, we're looking for an answer. Who? Why? We plan a memorial like we have. We did something regarding in the city for other families. We became an advocate for other families, trying to reach and help other families of violent crime. We've made friends with the Parkers, the other families here. We had a vigil downtown. A neighbor of ours, who's an evangelist, made a plea. My husband may speak of that. We had the events of that week are absolutely remarkable. There are no such thing as we put together a vigil. We, on November the 5th, we said, okay, that's done. We're going to have a day of fun. We went to Greenville. We had a good day of fun. 9 o'clock that night, within 2 hours, within 2 hours of the 13-year anniversary, we start getting a chain of telephone calls, and we knew something was wrong. We had somebody with us that had previous law enforcement, and he said, something's going on, something's going on. Unbelievable. It's not a coincidence that 13 years, God answered our friend's prayers, all of our prayers. I am so thankful to Kayla for, if it wasn't for her, we would not have issues. Mr. Kohlhepp's name is on that customer list. Why he was not pursued, that's a whole other story. Our lives have been changed forever, but we will continue. For every camera that's around this room, those are spirits, souls that are here with us, of the deceased. Actually, one of them is probably his mother. And talk about a coincidence, and then I'll end this coincidence. When we were trying to see our grandchildren, we had to have depositions. Lo and behold, my family court attorney calls me. His mother was the person who took the depositions of my daughter-in-law and my husband and I. That's God's work right there. I'm so thankful to have God in my life. My son is around. He's the hummingbird flying around. I hope that everybody in this room can begin to become aware of your presence, of your loved one. They're here. They're with us. Mr. Kohlhepp didn't win. He didn't win nothing. We all lost, but we are survivors. And we survived. Thank you.
Ms. Schroeder, I just want to address the court this time, I believe. She's indicated.
Make sure that it was hard work and big love racing, NASCAR, motorcycles, and he was murdered in cold blood for no reason. My son was taken from me at 26 years old. The best part of his life, he just had never had any children or marriage that shot, and the other
He was shot and 3 other innocent people after he got out of prison. You have done unspeakable acts to innocent people and families. I have a hole in my heart where my son should be. I'll never have grandchildren, have nightmares, and think about what you did to my son every day. Should you be allowed to sit in prisons? That is a luxury. You should be kept. You can't hurt anyone else and waste taxpayers' money. You are a murderer and a rapist. If you get life in prison, we will be your next victim. I hope you rot in hell for what you did to me and other families in prison.
Lucas, please answer the call.
The impact on our chose to try to do everything that we could do to our family. I will tell you that Lorraine and I we just turned our life into trying to find out what would make somebody so mad, so much hate for people. It's just, couldn't understand it. So we knew that it really had to have answers. So we got involved. I walked away from a good position, relocated back to South Carolina, worked closely with law enforcement all we could. We did a number of things. We met a lot of other victims' family members, same story. And we said, we've got to do things, we've got to change things. And we just never gave that effort. It's taken a toll, emotionally, physically, financially. We just had heartache after heartache, but we never gave up. Because we knew that someday, somehow, something's going to take place that's going to give us some answers. It's got to happen. And we've listened to a lot of people. We've listened to a lot of the other stories. We spent a lot of time with other victims' families. So today I've decided that I want to explain, and I want to do 2 pleas myself. My wife spoke about the November 5th memorial that we had, and it wasn't just for supervisors. It was for all victims' families. I remember that day, and the situation in Woodruff was going on. And a friend of mine, I asked him to say a prayer. And he told his wife, I don't know what to say. Because there was in the audience, there was a number of other people that still had no answers about their losses or loved ones that were taken from them. And as he began to pray, it was as if lightning struck him on him. Because he cried out that the blood of the dying are crying out for mercy. Oh, God, give us mercy. Give us answers. They want justice. And the hair on my arms stood up. After all those years, after all the struggles, after all the books, all the tips, the love-hate relationship with law enforcement, who got tired of seeing us, tired of hearing us. We know that the struggle was anything going to happen. All of a sudden, you feel like something shifted. People came up afterwards and said, wow, what a powerful message. Then the very next day, I believe with all my heart that God said justice will be served. And things were falling in place like dominoes. And get in contact and hearing the story, I will never forget, after all this time, that I had a lead detective sitting at my table with tears coming out of his eyes and telling us that what happened today was no less than a miracle. That this has just been unbelievable. So from the deepest of the darkest situations to sometime in God's time, things do happen. And that encouragement needs to be relayed to other victims that are suffering today. So I had 2 things I just wanted to plea on. I look at all the families and the victims, and I feel so sorry for the children, the young people that they hear bits and pieces. They don't really understand what's going on, and I worry that the impact on them is going to be great. I don't even think we know what the impact on these children is going to be. And I ask, are we doing enough? There's our legal system. There's the parents. Are we doing enough to really set things in place that we can help them? Because it's my belief that somewhere that it's going to come out somehow. You can't rip a child's father or mother from their hearts and nothing have no impact. They just don't go on and say, oh well, life goes on. So that's the one plea I would say, and I would do everything I possibly can do to help drive that. The other plea that I have, I honestly believe, after learning the story of Mr. Kohlhepp and understanding what went down all those years, I honestly believe there's other victims that have not been identified. And I make a plea to the defendant that I may be wrong, but if there's other victims, if you have crossed paths and done the evil acts, and those families are waiting for justice for their loved ones, if there are people, please come clean. Bring out those names if they're there. Allow those families to have some kind of peace themselves. And I say that with all sincerity because it is a terrible, terrible thing. But if there's more, get it out. I think that would not be much to ask after all the dastardly deeds that have been taken away from all of us. That's what my plea was, Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Alex Coffey. Alex Coffey is going to speak for Keller Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Judge, I'm here today on behalf of Kayla Brown. Your Honor, it's clear that this has been an extremely traumatic event. I'll tell you that Kayla wishes that she could be here today, but she continues to experience trauma, the effects of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And after discussing that with me and David Wyatt, who is also representing her, she thought it was best that we be here to speak on her behalf. Your Honor, so she apologizes for not being here. She certainly wishes that she could be here to thank all the members of law enforcement personally, as well as folks in the solicitor's office for all their hard work. Based on their hard work, that's why we're here today. So, Judge, just briefly, first, we'd like to let the court know that Kayla is in complete agreement with the sentence that's before you today. Your Honor, during the early stages of this prosecution, we discussed the potential sentences in this case, and at our first meeting with the solicitor, Kayla made it clear that she was in agreement with a life without parole sentence. We met several times with Solicitor Barnett since that first meeting, and she has never wavered in that position. Judge, Kayla's sole focus during this case has been to move forward with her life. This has been a challenge, but as the facts that you've heard here today clearly show that she's a survivor, and she is not going to let the actions of this defendant or these events dictate how she will live the rest of her life. Your Honor, while it was a consideration, Kayla is not agreeing to the sentence to avoid the years of hardship that she and other victims would have to endure if the state chose to seek the death penalty in this case. Her decision is based on the fact that, unlike this defendant, the death of another human being gives her no satisfaction, gives her no gratification or comfort. As Kayla put it in one of her early meetings with the solicitor, he's the killer, not me. Judge, from this point forward, this defendant will be a insignificant afterthought in Kayla's life. Your Honor, again, Kayla wanted us to express her deep gratitude to all members of law enforcement that are here today that worked on this case, to Sheriff Wright for his investigation of the case, and to Solicitor Barnett and members of the Solicitor's Office who have involved her in every aspect of this case and taken all of her feelings and input as far as the resolution seriously. And, she certainly appreciates this. And sorry she can't be here today. Thank you.
I'd like to call Sheriff Wright up.
I
each of those charging you with crimes of murder where you have pled guilty to each of those offenses. The sense of the court is, as to each, you, Todd Kohlhepp, be confined to the South Carolina Department of Corrections for the period of your natural life without the possibility of parole. Each of those sentences on each of those indictments are to run consecutively, one with the other, and any other sentence imposed today. Indictment 2017 at 989, an indictment for kidnapping where you have pled guilty. The sentence of the court is you be confined to the South Carolina Department of Corrections for a period of 30 years. That sentence is consecutive to any other sentence. Indictment 2017-988, an indictment for criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. The sentence of the court is you be confined to the South Carolina Department of Corrections for a period of 30 years. That sentence is also consecutive to any other sentence. You may take your time.
Everybody may see. Let's see it, everyone.
At this time, the family members please stand and proceed